teaching faculty of Geography Department of Shyampur Siddheswari Mahavidyalaya. We are going to start our one-day agriculture which have been organized by the Department of Geography in association with IQAC of Shyampur Siddheswari Mahavidyalaya. Now we will start our program with welcome address by our convener of today's program and the head of the Department of Geography, Dr. Devjani Roy. Please, sir.
Good afternoon, everybody. All of us are passing through a very difficult time. Indeed, from academic perspective, our college is organizing a series of webinars, workshops, and other online-based programs. As a part of this academic program series, I welcome you all in this one-day webinar, Agriculture, Society, and Sustainability, a geographical outline organized by the Department of Geography in association with IQAC, Shyampur Siddheswari Mahavidyalaya. On behalf of the organizing committee of this webinar, I take the opportunity to gladly welcome the key speakers of our today's webinar, Dr. Tarun Kumar Mondal of University of Kalyani and Dr. Devjani Roy of Nirmala College, Ranchi, who will highlight on the theme of today's webinar in the technical session. I welcome the Honorable President of the governing body of our college, Sri Kalipada Mondal, and also welcome the Honorable Member of our governing body, Sri Nodebashi Jana, who constantly inspire us for any academic endeavor. I welcome our Honorable Principal Sir and the patron of today's webinar, Dr. Shyampur Kumar Bose, who has encouraged us to organize this program. I welcome the coordinator of IQAC of our college, Sri Rajarshi Mukherjee, who constantly gives us support during the arrangement of this webinar. I also welcome our honorable teaching faculties and non-teaching staffs of our college present here. I heartily welcome all the participants, the students, research scholars, school teachers, college and university faculties, and other distinguished viewers from various disciplines and different parts of our state and from different parts of our country who have given us the time to listen to our honorable key speakers in this one-day national webinar. I also welcome our IQAC team members who are giving us the technical cooperation to run this program smoothly. I hope this will be an enriching experience and also enrich us on agriculture, society, and sustainability, both in conceptual and analytical way based on the geographical perspective. In this regard, the registered participants who have not yet joined, I request them to join our Telegram group. The link has already given in our official YouTube live and Facebook page. So I welcome you all in this online platform to enjoy the one-day national webinar. Thank you all for your presence. Thank you. Over to Shumona.
Now the inaugural speech will be delivered by our Honorable Principal Dr. Shyampur Kumar Bose, who is also the Honorable Patron of today's webinar. But our Honorable Principal Sir is busy today. He is unable to come live, but he has sent us a video message regarding our webinar.
Good afternoon, everybody. First of all, I welcome all the participants in the national webinar on Agriculture, Society and Sustainability, a geographical outline, being organized by the Department of Geography in association with Internal Quality Assurance Cell of our college. I would like to convey thanks to the speakers of this webinar, Dr. Tarun Kumar Mondal, Assistant Professor and Head, Department of Geography, University of Kalyani, and Dr. Devjani Roy, Associate Professor and Head, PG Department of Geography, Nirmala College, Ranchi, Jharkhand, who will deliver their valuable lectures in this webinar. I would also like to convey thanks to the coordinator and members of the Internal Quality Assurance Cell, along with the teachers of the Department of Geography of our college, who deserve it for arranging such a webinar in this time of pandemic. I think the participants will be benefited from this webinar. I expect a grand success of this webinar. Thank you all once again.
Thank you so much, sir, for saying the warm greetings. Now, I would like to welcome our dear coordinator of IQAC, Sri Rajashri Mukherjee, who will deliver few words on today's webinar. Please come, sir.
Thank you, Shuana, for welcoming me on this platform. And thank you, Dr. Vedasujjal Mondor, for arranging such a webinar. We are passing through unprecedented crisis, and it is being termed as a new normal, where we are sitting back in our home, arrested. Our normal activities are stopped, and we do not know when shall this resume. However, as academicians, as teachers and students, we must continue to do what we do best. Keeping that in mind, Shyampur Siddheswari Mahavidyalaya has been arranging a string of webinars. And today, the success of this webinar is evident because we can already see a lot of participants has logged into YouTube. Being a Sunday afternoon, the very enthusiasm shown by the participants encourages us to move ahead. We are thankful to the honorable resource persons who have so kindly consented to grace this occasion as speakers. We look forward to their valuable speech. Thank you very, very much once again. Over to you, Shumana.
Thank you so much, sir, for your valuable speech. Now we are going to start our technical session. It is the major part of today's webinar. Our chief guest, Dr. Tarun Kumar Mondol and Dr. Devjani Roy are present with us as a key speaker. And our convener, sir, will be introduced our chief guest, Dr. Tarun Kumar Mondol. Please, sir.
Thank you, Shona. Now it is the time to proceed for the technical session of today's one-day webinar. So our first speaker is Dr. Tarun Kumar Mondol, who will deliver his speech on the topic entitled Agriculture in Indian Sundarban Delta, Challenges and Opportunities, which is very much relevant in nowadays time of crisis. So before listening to our first speaker, I take the opportunity to say few words about our first honorable speaker, Dr. Mondol. Dr. Tarun Kumar Mondol is presently the assistant professor and head of the department, University of Kalyani, West Bengal. His research interests include agriculture and rural development, gender studies, and climate change. He has published 34 research papers in national and international journals and contributed 2 chapters in edited books. He presented 46 papers in national and international conferences. Dr. Mondol has presented his papers in Sri Lanka, Germany, Japan, Brazil, Poland, Bangladesh, and other countries during last 10 years. 4 scholars have already been awarded PhD under his supervision. Dr. Mondol has received a number of national and international awards and recognition. He was awarded twice in 2012 and in 2013 by the International Geographical Union or IGU. Dr. Mondol was also awarded by the Historical Geography Research Group of the Royal Geographical Society, United Kingdom in 2018. He is the life member of several esteemed organizations in the field of geography of both national and international level, such as Geographical Society of India, Regional Science Association, Foundation of Practicing Geographers, National Association of Geographers India, National Geol Society of India, etc. Overall, he is well known as popular and esteemed teacher among the students and research scholars in his institution. Now, today,
Sir, you can start.
I would like to share the PPT. PPT is visible.
No, sir.
Hello.
PPT is not visible, sir. Please share.
Oh.
Please choose entire screen and share.
এখানে ক্লিক করব
তারপর শেয়ার
এবার এসে
পিপিটিটাই চলে যাবে আমি দেখছি
So please choose entire screen and then click on the body. Okay, sir. It has already come.
Oh, okay.
Fine, sir. Carry on.
Thank you. Good afternoon, everybody. Dr. Shyantu Kumar Bose, Principal, Shyampur, Siddheswari Mahavidyalaya. Sri Kalipada Mandal, President, Governing Body. Sri Nadevasi Jana, Member, Governing Body. And convener of this webinar, Dr. Valedictory Mandal, Assistant Professor in Geography. Sri Rajarshi Mukherjee, Coordinator, IQAC of this college. Dr. Devjani Roy, Head and PG Department of Geography, Nirmala College, Ranchi, Jharkhand, and other members and technical assistants of this national seminar, and all the distinguished participants. I am deeply honored and privileged to be invited to share my views on agriculture in Indian Sundarban Delta, challenges and opportunities in this one-day national webinar on agriculture, society and sustainability, a geographical outline organized by the Department of Geography, Shyampur Siddheswari Mahavidyalaya in collaboration with the IQAC, Howrah, West Bengal. On 20th May, Sundarban has been severely hit by Cyclone Amphan. Around 28% of the Sundarban forests have been severely damaged, and more than 2 lakhs farmers in this delta have been severely affected and still are struggling to cope up with this crisis. And after the cyclone Amphan made landfall and seawater breached the mud embankments and the lifeline in the Sundarban delta and entered into the villages and croplands, and as a result 1,000 hectares of croplands and standing crops were submerged by saline water. And this salty water has rendered the agricultural lands infertile, and it will remain unsuitable for cultivation for the next several years. As per the census 2011, 4.4 million people live in this fragile ecosystem. Adverse agroecological conditions, remote location, farmers' inability to use adequate inputs in agriculture, lacuna in infrastructure related to agricultural development, impede the agricultural development in this delta region. In spite of this, 59% of the total working force in this delta is directly engaged in agriculture. And agricultural communities are highly susceptible to the incidents of cyclones, storm surges, floods, and severe erosion. And agriculture in this delta is highly vulnerable to climate change and sea level rise. And to cope up with this situation and to combat these challenges in few pockets in Sundarban Delta, integrated farming system has been adopted by the mainly small farmers as a part of climate smart agriculture. Sundarban Delta lies at the estuaries of the rivers Ganga, Brahmaputra, and Meghna, and is the largest active delta in the world. And it is the largest single mangrove forest block, including Bangladesh, in the world, and it is the largest carbon sink region in South Asia. And this region is rich in biodiversity, and most of the flora and fauna are endemic in nature and endangered. And this biodiversity region has been declared as a World Heritage Site by UNESCO. Mitro and his associates in 2009 observed on the basis of the 30 years changing nature of temperature, and Mitro stated that the sea surface temperature, sea surface water temperature close to the Indian Sundarban Delta has been rising at the rate of 0.5 degrees Celsius per decade. Whereas during this time, the average global warming rate has been recorded as 0.06 degrees Celsius per decade. And it has been estimated that nearly 40% of the Sundarban forests have been severely damaged due to the sea level rise during the last 40 years. And the ecological significance and of this delta is well established. And however, the livelihood crisis, the livelihood security, and the economic issue and significance, and the dependency of the inhabitants of this delta on these mangrove forests are less addressed. And the Sundarbans have been inhabited for thousands of years, and as is proved by artifacts dating back to before the Mauryan era, that is during 4th to 2nd century BC. And the early history in this delta is mainly based on archaeological evidences. And during the period from 750 AD to 1200 AD, it is assumed that fishing was the main livelihood in this delta region. But during the period from 1200 AD to 1575 AD, some fundamental changes took place in this delta region. And Eaton pointed out that the Muslim pioneers not only established the Muslim religions much in the south and eastern Bengal, but they significantly contributed fundamental changes, and the wet rice farming was initiated, and during this period, at the cost of the clearance of the huge amount of forest land, and they altered the modes of property rights and altered the fundamental nature of the forest ecosystem, and farming became preferred to fishing as an occupation, and during the period from 1200 AD to 15,075 AD. Since 1770, both the Jamindars and the British rulers had financial incentives and bring out the new lands in the Sundarban area for the agricultural land, and as a result, the land, and this was accomplished as a result of the extensive clearance of the forest land, and during the period from 1880 to 1950, 45% cropland increased during this period, 1880 to 1950. And it is interesting that during the period from 1940 to 50, that within one decade, cropland increased by 23%. And two factors were contributed to the huge demand of agricultural land during the period from 1940 to 50. And the first, the Bengal famine in 1943, and second, partition of Bengal in 1947 during Indian independence. And it created a massive migration of refugees, and significant portion of refugees resettled in this delta region. And Sir Daniel Hamilton was a Scottish businessman, and he was the pioneer in the field of cooperative movement in India during the colonial period. And Sir Daniel Hamilton took lease three islands, namely Kusava, Rangavalia, and Sajjalia, from the British rulers to establish a cooperative community in a self-sustained way. And Daniel Hamilton introduced rainwater harvesting, and he brought in salt-resistant crops, and he established Dharmagola, that is grain reservoir. And Misro rightly pointed out that Sir Daniel Hamilton Sahib created such an environment wherein harmonious inter-ethnic groups has established, and in this way a sense of oneness has developed. And this sense of oneness is very useful to live together and to fight together against natural calamities and fear of wild animals. And in 1971, during the Bangladesh independence were. Another movement of refugee and large influx of refugees in 1971 and significantly increase in population in Indian Sundarban Delta has been recorded. And during 1980s, that is the second phase of Green Revolution in India and first phase of Green Revolution in case of West Bengal, traditional agriculture, traditional way of farming was replaced by the introduction of modern technological based agriculture. And since 2000s, in few pockets in Sundarban Delta, and mainly marginal farmers have started integrated farming to promote climate smart agriculture in this delta. Broadly, land in Sundarban Delta can be classified into three categories, that is high land, medium land, low land, and deep lowland. And 11% of the total land is under high land, and this land is suitable for the cultivation of high value crops, vegetables and fruits. And highlands are cultivated with irrigated water. And 26% of the total lands fall under this medium land. And medium land with water stagnation varies from 1.5 centimeter to 3 centimeter. 3 centimeter during peak monsoon season. And most of the medium lands remain uncultivated during winter and summer season. And highland is characterized with water stagnation up to 1.5 centimeter. And water stagnation in case of medium land varies from 1.5 centimeter to 3 centimeter. But whereas 63% of the total land is under lowland and deep lowland. And this is totally rain-fed area. There is no irrigation facilities. And these lowland and deep lowland where the water stagnation varies from 3 centimeter to 6 centimeters. These land is a single crop area, and after the harvesting of the Amon paddy, that is the winter paddy, and these lowland and deep lowland remain uncultivated for the next 6 to 7 months. In Indian Sundarban Delta, more than 80% of the farmers is marginal farmer. And the average landholding size among the farmers is only 0.36 hectares. And most of the lands are saline, and only 7% land, agricultural land, is fully irrigated, and 19% of the total cultivable or agricultural land is partially irrigated, and the remaining 74% of the total agricultural lands are rain-fed area, and there is no facility for irrigation. And in this region, agriculture and agricultural communities are more vulnerable to natural calamities, cyclones, tidal surges, and erosion and floods, waterlogging. As a result, irrigation facility is very poor and farmers are marginal, social and economic backwardness, and farmers' inability to use the adequate technological inputs in agriculture. And that's why the cropping intensity in this delta is very low. In 2016-17, 121% cropping intensity has been recorded in this delta, and it is much low than the West Bengal. And in the same year, the cropping intensity in West Bengal has been recorded as 184%. Yield rates of crops, crop diversification, both are low, and farmers in this delta face crisis from markets and transport and communications and cold storage. And that's why the agriculture, a unique agricultural profile has developed in this delta and with low output. DISHA has identified different forms of corporate abuse in Indian Sundarban Delta with the adoption of high-yielding varieties of seeds, and in this delta region, the traditional way of farming, the traditional seeds, the salt-resistant varieties of seeds, mainly paddy, was replaced, and for the cultivation of high-yielding varieties of seeds, it requires a huge amount of chemical fertilizers, insecticides and pesticides, and our old aged traditional paddy calf culture, paddy cum fishing culture in many places in Sundarban Delta were replaced by the adoption of high-yielding varieties of seeds and the adoption of the other associated modern technological inputs, and these chemical fertilizers and HYV seeds, pesticides, herbicides, all these are managed and distributed by the corporate house. And from this discussion, it is clear that the Sundarban is one of the vulnerable region, and due to adverse agroecological conditions and socioeconomic backwardness and remote location, a distinct agricultural profile has developed with low agricultural output, which is not adequate for the sustenance of this large number of population and in this delta, and which ultimately pose a serious threat to the existence of the Sundarban mangrove forests. And that's why initiatives towards the agricultural development, the main activity in this delta, are inevitable. And to cope up with this crisis of agriculture, and farmers have initiated integrated farming system as a climate smart agriculture. And climate smart agriculture is concerned with the mainly three objectives. Number one, sustainably increasing crop production and income. and adapting and resilient to climate change, and to reducing or totally stop the emissions of greenhouse gas where possible. An integrated farming system is the combination of the production of crops and livestock farming and pisciculture to ensure the sustainability of the environment and food security and nutrition security. And this integrated farming system is highly effective to promote climate smart agriculture in this delta. An integrated farming system is the combination of the cultivation of crops and vegetables, poultry farming, animal husbandry, and pisciculture. And this integrated farming system has introduced environmental sustainability and livelihood security in several ways. Mainly, organic manures is used in integrated farming, and biofertilizer and vermicompost are used in this system, and fossil fuel dependency is practically zero, and this system is zero waste farming system. And farmers enjoy stable income from the different sources, and every materials and in this system can be recycled, and that's why the zero waste farming system, and risk is reduced, and this integrated farming system, due to the introduction of this integrated farming system, the seasonal migration is reduced because it is labor intensive farming system. An integrated farming system generates employment throughout the year. And these are the main components of integrated farming system practiced in Sundarban Delta region: land shaping, space allocation, paddy cum carp culture, consolidation of ponds, integration in water, pond, dish, drains, rice field, integration between cattle shed, compost pit, vegetable garden, and integration between cattle shed, biogas pit, kitchen, vegetable garden, rice field, and awareness generation about the salt-resistant crops or about the organic inputs. In order to address the water logging and in this region, and farmers are motivated to change the shape of their land, and a pond is excavated within the integrated farm, and the soils of this pond are used to raise a section of this within this integrated farm, so that this highland can be used for the cultivation of vegetables throughout the year. And space allocation, that is space for the cultivation of crops and cultivation or fishing or animal husbandry, and varies from integrated one integrated farms to another. Normally, in Pathor Protima block, there are many integrated farms, and normally 65% space is allocated for paddy cultivation, and 15% for fishing pond, and 10% for dairying and animal husbandry, and the remaining 10% and the remaining area for cultivation of fodder. And these are some photographs of integrated farming, and photograph 1 and photograph 3. These are the paddy vegetable calf culture, and this is the paddy field, and this paddy field is linked with a pond and with this drain, and the width of this drain is quite large. And it is interesting that there is a net over the drain, and over this net different types of vegetables are cultivated, and this is the effective utilization of the space. And water hyacinth and in this drain are used for vermicompost, and the space over the pond, there are vegetables, effective utilization of space, and poultry over the pond. And Sukamal Mondal and integrated farmer in a Pathor Pratima block, and having 0.7 hectares land, and Sukamal Mondal installed this rain gauge, and this is the multi-level species cultivation, and coriander is cultivated in the turmeric fields. And Pathor Pratima city block has been selected to analyze the strengths and weakness and opportunities and threats of integrated farming system. And these 5 villages have been selected, and altogether 60 farmers have been surveyed in 2017. Dokhin Shivpur village and Vishwanathpur village, Indraprastha village, Ramganga village, and Brojoballabpur village. And in this SWOT analysis, total 24 SWOT criteria have been selected, 6 for strength and 6 for weaknesses, and 6 criteria for opportunities and 6 criteria for threats. And in strengths, that is SWOT criteria 1, scope for the utilization of land and water resources in an integrated way. These are the strengths: rich biodiversity region, farmers' knowledge of diversified farming, community cohesion, immense scope for rainwater harvesting, and aids from national and international agencies. And in weaknesses, 6 SWOT criteria: low yield rate and excessive salinity and socio-economic backwardness, poor communication system, high dependence on agriculture, and lack of coordination among the different organizations. And similarly, 6 criteria for opportunities: scope for fulfilling the demand of Kolkata metropolitan city market due to its proximity, and scope for generating farm employment throughout the year, scope for enhancing agro-diversification and ensuring food and nutrition security, and scope for establishing agro-processing industries, scope for increasing agricultural productivity, generating stable income and maximizing profit, scope for increasing farmers' resilience to climate change, ensuring zero fossil fuel dependency, and promotion of organic farming. And in case of threats, 6 SWOT criteria: occurrence of severe natural disasters, vulnerability to climate change and sea level rise, deforestation and biodiversity loss, land degradation, and increase in population pressure and poor infrastructural facilities and wastage of agricultural commodities. And considering these 24 SWOT criteria, this fundamental scale of analytic hierarchy process developed by Shoti has been used in SWOT analysis, and this scale varies from 1 to 9, that is from equal importance to extreme importance. And I am not going to discuss in detail the methodology, just I am highlighting the main points of this methodology so that the outcomes of the SWOT can be easily understood. And at first, the pair-wise matrix has been calculated, and then normalized pairwise matrix has been calculated by its column total to generate a normalized pairwise matrix, and by dividing each element in this matrix by the column total. And from this normalized pairwise matrix and weighted vector has been calculated, and consistency vector is calculated by multiplying the pairwise matrix by the weight vectors, and finally consistency ratio has been calculated by dividing the consistency index by a random index, and this consistency ratio less than equal to 0.1, that means the observation is acceptable, and the consistency ratio greater than 0.1 is required re-examination. And these are the factor priority score and overall priority score in Ramganga village, and these are the sum total of strengths, opportunities, overall priority score, weakness, and threats. From this diagram, and it is clear that strengths contribute 39.64% of the total overall priority score, followed by opportunities and threats and weaknesses. And like the Ramganga villages, and these are the factor priority score and overall priority score in Dakshin Shibpur village, and like the previous village, and strengths secured the highest position, and strength contributes 41.47% to the total overall priority score, and followed by opportunities 29.59%, and weakness, and then threats. And these are the factor priority score and overall priority score for Vishwanathpur village. And from this diagram, that strengths contribute 32.29% of the total overall priority score, and followed by opportunities, threat, and weakness. And factor priority score and overall priority score for Indraprastha village, and like the previous three villages, and strengths secured the first rank, and strengths contribute contribute 41.18% to the total overall priority score, and followed by opportunities contribute 29.30%. And this is the last village, Brojoballabhpur village, factor priority score and overall priority score. And strengths contribute 37.63% to the total overall priority score, and followed by opportunities and threats and weakness. And from the average value of the overall priority score of the 5 villages, it is clear that strengths contribute 38.44% and followed by opportunity 31.21%. And if we consider the strength and opportunity, and this figure is much higher than the weakness and threats. And from this table, that the first 3 SWOT criteria, that is strength 1, scope for the utilization of land and water resources in an integrated way, and SWOT criteria, that is strength, and that is scope for enhancing agro diversification and ensuring food and nutrition security, opportunity, and threat, occurrence of severe natural disasters, that is cyclones, tidal surges, and floods. And these 3 SWOT factors out of the 24 factors contribute 31.92% of the total overall priority score. And out of the 24 SWOT criteria, these 10 SWOT criteria contribute more than 75% of the total overall priority score. And from these analyses, and it is clear that strengths for integrated farming system is the maximum, and strengths secured the maximum value for overall priority score, and followed by opportunities. And the integrated farming system has the immense potential in this delta region. In this backward region, in terms of socio-economic backwardness, in terms of prone to natural calamities and man-induced catastrophic events and adverse agroecological conditions, initiatives towards the agricultural development in the line of climate smart agriculture is required, and integrated farming system and may be fruitful and may be effective to combat the climate change threat and associated issues, and to recover their severely affected livelihoods. And not only in this delta region, integrated farming system is effective to promote climate smart agriculture, but it will be effective in the similar socio-economic and geographic environment in India and in other parts of the world. And thank you all for listening my talk. Thank you.
Thank you, sir. I congratulate Dr. Torun Kumar Mondal for his illustrated and analytical presentation highlighting different perspectives, especially the ground level people and agricultural status and its different perspectives of Sundarban Deltic region of Lower Gangetic Plain. Actually, the first session of his lecture has focused on agricultural transformation and agricultural profile in Indian Sundarban Delta, which is prone to very vulnerable. And second session has prominently aimed on integrated farming system and its future in this region of Sundarban Delta, one of the most vulnerable ecological regions facing hazardous effect of climate change phenomena and resultant global warming based on the real situation. Then his study was consisted of some nice case study, formula application, SWOT criteria analysis, and opportunities for different aspects of agriculture in this deltic region. So now it is time for the interactive session of Dr. Mondal's lecture with the participants of today's seminar. So now move over to other queries by the participants. So there are some few questions, sir. Sir, are you audible to me? Sir, are you audible?
Yes.
Okay. One of our participant, Onosi Mandi, have a question. Which crops can be cultivated as mixed cropping in Sundarban Delta region? Which crops can be cultivated as mixed cropping in Sundarban Delta region? Sir, over to you.
Actually, Sundarban region, in Sundarban region, most of the farmers belong to the marginal category, and therefore different types of salt resistance varieties of paddy should be cultivated, and paddy is a staple crop. Oilseeds and cotton and vegetables may be cultivated and along with this paddy, and not mixed cropping, and all these crops should be cultivated in an integrated way, and with the integrated use of land and water resources is possible within integrated farming, and it is not possible in mixed farming, because in mixed farming and corporate abuse may be occurred in mixed farming. Okay.
Okay, sir. There is a second question from Onkita Pal. She questioned that are there any other type of farming or economic activities except integrated farming that can solve the problem of people to combat against climate change in Sundarban Delta?
Apart from integrated farming, and there are organic farming and specialized dry farming, and those areas irrigation is not possible due to extreme salinity in water, and specialized dry farming and organic farming and specialized rain-fed farming in an integrated way may be helpful to combat the climate change related vulnerability.
Okay, sir. Then we proceed for the third question from Anindo Pal. He questioned that in nowadays, very interesting question. In nowadays, how a BSc graduate student will be attracted by agriculture by avoiding the government jobs and company jobs?
I repeat, Vedas.
Of course, sir. The question is, in nowadays, how a graduate student, if he is a graduate student, how will he be attracted by the agriculture by avoiding government job or company job?
Oh, interesting.
Very interesting question, sir.
Interesting questions. And actually, the proper implementation of the specialized dry farming and proper implementation of the specialized rain-fed farming and the effective implementation of this integrated farming also, it requires knowledge and it requires knowledge of the environment, and it requires knowledge about the natural calamities. It requires knowledge about the market and the role of agriculture in the changing nature of the new economic liberalization. And that's why after completion of the graduation, and if you prefer agriculture, it would be better, and it will be better.
Okay, sir. The next question comes from Indira Lepcha. She questioned that with problems of poor socioeconomic development, high population density and climate change, how it is possible to move to smart agriculture? Sir, can I repeat?
Huh.
With problems of poor socioeconomic development, high population density and climate change, how is it possible to move to smart agriculture?
Very good question. Actually, seasonal migration is a short-term adaptation measure in this delta, because population pressure on lands in this delta is high. And only agriculture, it is not possible, and the other allied activities like tourism and transport development and fishing and labor intensive agriculture and should be emphasized, and the influx of the refugees and should be checked, and to reduce the dependency of the high population on agriculture should be minimized, and diversified sources of income and different types of opening and should be promoted in this region, because this region, agroecological conditions of the region is not suitable for agriculture, is not suitable, because yield rate, crop diversification, or cropping intensity, all these agricultural output analyses are very low. Adverse agroecological conditions, extreme salinity in soil and water. But in these adverse situations, climate smart agriculture is one of the viable options to combat this crisis.
Okay, sir. Due to the limitation of time, we have the last question. We select the last question from Shanat Kumar Purkait. How far the market value of the products did affect on the agricultural system in Sundarban?
In Sundarban, the market facilities are not good, but there is a special variation within Indian Sundarban Delta. I already mentioned that lacuna area. Okay, I am audible.
Yes, sir.
But special variations eco but there are
Sir, kindly repeat. You are not audible actually, but there is echo. Kindly, sir, repeat the answer.
Okay. Hello.
Yes, sir. You are audible.
But echo.
There is a slight echo in your voice. Okay, it's nice.
Hello.
Yes, sir. You are audible.
Audible. Problem sound is problem. Echo. Hello.
Yes, sir. You are audible, sir.
Audible what? Problem
Yes, sir.
echo. There is a special variations in terms of the accessibility of markets. And I have already mentioned that market facilities are not good in this region. However, farmers living in the western Indian Sundarban Delta receive better price for their agricultural communities than the farmers living in the eastern part. Because rail network and the road network are better in the western part of the Indian Sundarban Delta, especially for the cluster market for the agricultural commodities produced from the integrated farm
interrupt you, sir. In 1 minute, probably either Bedhosh or you have opened YouTube in your mobile phone or your laptop. Please close the YouTube. That is why the echo is here.
No, I have just closed.
Please close YouTube whether you have opened it.
The YouTube is already has already been closed.
Okay.
Hello.
Yes,
Hello.
sir. Yes, sir.
And therefore a cluster of markets, and with the improvement of the transport and communication, and to build up the linkage with the global value chain, and it is possible to solve the crisis of this market. And western part of Indian Sundarban Delta is better, but eastern section is market is not good. And in case of the selling of agricultural commodities raised from the integrated farms, it requires organic certification, and it requires proper market, because all these agricultural products are produced and in this integrated farming using the organic inputs, and therefore the commodities produced in the integrated farms demand more market price than the products produced in the conventional agricultural fields, and with the use of chemical fertilizers and high yielding variety seeds, etc. Okay.
Thank you, sir. I think that all the participants have got their answers from sir. Sir, we have enjoyed a lot your nice, informative, and illustrated presentation. I think the participants present with us also enjoyed your presentation on Indian Sundarban Delta, its agricultural status very much. I congratulate you again, sir, and thank you, sir. Thank you very much for your presentation. Thank you, sir.
Thank you.
Sumana, over to you.
Dr. Mondal highlights the agricultural status, people crisis during COVID session and post-Amphan phase of the Deltic region in Lower Gangetic Plain. And he analyzed the challenge and opportunities of Sundarban Delta. It is one of the vulnerable region. Thank you again, sir, for your illustrated and analytical presentation. Now, our convener, sir, will be introduce our second speaker, Dr. Devjani Roy. Please, sir.
Thank you, Sumana. Now it is time to proceed for the second phase of our technical session of today's one-day national webinar. Our second honorable speaker of today's webinar is Dr. Devjani Roy, who will deliver her speech on topic societal distress and sustainability, a geographical perspective. Before listening to our second speaker, I would like to make her introduce with all in this session. Dr. Devjani Roy is the Associate Professor and Head of the PG Department of Geography, Nirmala College, Ranchi, Jharkhand, including more than 20 years of teaching experience in UG and PG courses. She presently holds the post of Institutional Nodal Officer for Rashtriya Uchchatar Shiksha Abhijan, RUSA, Convener of Internal Quality Assurance Cell, Coordinator of UGC CPE Scheme, EBSB Coordinator at Nirmala College, Ranchi. Presently, Dr. Roy is supervising research scholars for PhD under Ranchi University, and some of them have been awarded with PhD degree. She has successfully convened 7 national and international level conference and workshops. She was invited as research person, chaired session, coordinated 21 seminar and faculty development program organized by different universities and HRDC over the country during last 10 years. Dr. Roy is presently the member of Board of Studies in Ranchi University. She is also the life member of several esteemed academic organizations like National Association of Geographers India, the Konkan Geographers, Indian National Cartographers Association, and so on. Overall, she is well known as famous and esteemed teacher among the students of geography and popular speaker over different socioeconomic aspects of geography. Now, today, Dr. Roy will enlighten us on such a subject which is very much relevant in nowadays situation of crisis. She will focus a discussion on the broad topic of sustainability and how it is influenced or influences the society based on geographical approach. Now, I heartily welcome our second speaker, Dr. Devjani Roy, and request her to deliver the lecture entitled Societal Distress and Sustainability, a Geographical Perspective. We hope that our participants will enjoy this session. Please, ma'am.
Namaskar. Good evening. Thank you so much for having me on this forum. It's my privilege that I have been invited here to share my thoughts. Let me say in the very beginning that my presentation is not an empirical study. It is not a research paper. It is a very general outlook at the concept of sustainability and societal distress. We are passing through very hard times. And in this scenario, I thought that it is best to address societal distress. So with this, I would like to share my screen. Is the screen visible? Is my screen visible?
No, ma'am, it's not yet visible.
It's not visible. Okay.
Share screen, ma'am.
Yeah, I've gone to share screen and
Click on it.
is it coming?
No, ma'am, it's not coming.
Okay, once again.
Yeah. Click on
Once again.
share screen.
Yeah, I have share screen, share.
Click on your entire screen. You get the entire screen, put your cursor in the middle and just tap it. Yes, ma'am.
Is it
Now
coming now?
available. Yeah. Now we can see it.
You can see it, but I can't see it. Wait.
You won't be
Can you
able to see it. Yeah, we can see.
Can I? You can see it. It's okay. Is it okay now?
Yeah, it's perfect.
Okay, thank you so much. So this is my topic, societal distress and sustainability, a geographical perspective. At the foremost, I would like to thank Dr. S.K. Bose, the patron and principal, Dr. Bedhashujjal Mondol, the convener of this webinar, for having me over here, Sri Rajarshi Mukherjee, coordinator IQAC, Dr. Tarun Kumar Mandal, head of the Department of Geography, Kalyani University, who just spoke before me, and all faculty, Department of Geography, Shyampur, Siddheswari, Mahavidyalaya, and all members present here, all participants. I wish you a very good evening, and thank you once again for having me on this four thoughts with you all. So my lecture is divided into three parts. The first part will be on sustainability. The second part will be on relationship between society and sustainability. And the third part will be on societal distress. So this is the concept of sustainability. Sustainable development has become a very popular catchphrase in contemporary times. However, in spite of its pervasiveness and massive popularity, the concept still seems unclear as many people continue to ask questions about its meaning and history. The entire issue of sustainable development centers around three distinct but interconnected pillars, namely environment, economy, and society. And this slide encompasses all the three things that we have just spoken of. Moving on, what is sustainability? Now, literally, it means a capacity to maintain some entity, outcome, or process over time. This was told by Basiogo in 1999. However, many academicians and researchers apply the concept to connote improving and sustaining a healthy economic, ecological, and social system for human development. Now, Ben Ali in 2015 sees sustainability as a dynamic equilibrium in the process of interaction between the population and carrying capacity of the environment upon which it depends. Thomas in 2015 continues that sustainability brings into focus human activities and their ability to satisfy human needs and wants without depleting or exhausting the productive resources at their disposal. Now, this I feel is the most important part of sustainability, that we have to use the resources without depleting it and making them unavailable for the future generation. This therefore provokes thoughts on the manner in which people should lead economic and social lives, drawing on the available ecological resources for human development. Now, what is sustainability vis-a-vis society? The relevance of sustainable development actually deepens with the dawn of every day, because population keeps increasing, but natural resources available for the satisfaction of human needs and wants do not increase. So sustainable development is an effort at guaranteeing a balance among economic growth, environmental integrity, and social well-being. So sustainable development is possible through integration of economic, environment, and social concerns in decision-making process. So the most important part of sustainability is the decision-making. Now, there are two theories. One is the modernization theory and the other is the dependency theory, which deal with both sustainability and society. The modernization theory of development distinguishes two main categories of society in the world. One is the traditional society and the other is the modern society. The traditional societies are entangled by norms, beliefs, values, which are hampering the development. So they say. Therefore, in order to progress, the traditional societies must emulate the culture of the modern society. Now, this is the theory. In fact, traditional societies try to improve their economic growth by introducing modern technology. Now, let me state an example. There is slash and burn agriculture or jhum cultivation, which is rampant in many parts of the world. It's a very traditional way of farming. If that is replaced by a modern technique, will that be sustainable? Well, the modernization theory has its views on this. Now, moving on to the dependency theory, that is based on the Marxist ideology. It asserts that industrialization in developed countries rather subjects poor countries to underdevelopment as a result of economic surplus of the poor countries being exploited by the developed countries. Now, this is a very true phenomenon. I come from the state of Jharkhand, which is the richest state in terms of minerals. Yet, all the mines in the state of Jharkhand are owned by either corporates or by the government, and the local people are derived from any sort of benefit with respect to the mines. So, if we go by the dependency theory, what happens to the society that is traditional, a society of have-nots? Do they have a sustainable future? I'd go back to the history of sustainable development. Now, according to Pigou in 1920, sustainable development as a concept derives from economics as a discipline. After Malthus in 1789 propounded his theory of population growth exceeding available resources, the discussion on sustainable development began. We are all aware that Malthus has stated that food production increases in arithmetic progression while population will increase in geometric progression. So very soon, a time will come when there will be a crisis. Now, how would the Earth's limited natural resource support the existence of increasing human population then? Well, Aristotle in 300 BC, way back, if you see on the right-hand side of the slide, there's a flow chart which shows the events in sustainable development. So Aristotle in 300 BC, he first recognizes a tragedy of commons type of problem and the need to conserve resources. However, the import of the postulation tended to be ignored in the belief that technology could be developed to cancel such an occurrence as food crisis. We are all aware of Esther Bostrup's theory, stating that if there is an agricultural technology, then the food crisis can be overcome. And it has been sorted out. We, in the 1960s, we had our own green revolution. Agricultural revolution meant that food production would be enhanced. But with the global concerns, as they began to be heightened because of non-renewability of some resources, which threaten production and long-term economic growth, which will result in economic degradation and pollution. What it meant was that, supposing coal is a non-renewable resource. If we start exploiting coal, it will not be regenerated in the near future. Now, this reawakened consciousness about the possibility of the occurrence of Malthus's postulation and raised the question about whether the path being clustered regarding development was sustainable or not. The report of sustainable development received its first major international recognition in 1972 at the UN Conference on Human Environment held in Stockholm. You can see in the flowchart, it's given. Then came the Brundtland report entitled Our Common Future in 1987. The report defined sustainable development as development that meets the needs of the present generation without compromising the ability of the future generation to meet their own needs. And this is the most acceptable definition till date. The Brundtland report engendered the UN Conference on Environment and Development, that is UNCED, also known as the Rio Summit of 1992. In 2012, 20 years after the first Earth Summit in Rio was held, the UN Conference on Sustainable Development, that is UNCSD or Rio Plus 20 was held. A reaffirmed commitment to sustainable development was key to the conference outcome document. Now, the outcomes of Rio Plus 20 included a process for developing new sustainable development goals from 2015 and to encourage focused action on sustainable development in all sectors of global development agenda. Now, ever since 2000, we have had the Millennium Development Goals. They were operational. In Rio Plus 20, that not much had been done in this respect. So it was decided at the conference that from 2015 onwards, the focus would shift towards all sectors of global development. We now move on to the next slide, which shows the relationship between environment, economy, and society. Now, I've tried to simplify this in the form of three pictures. You see three pictures on your slide, and what I want to say is that nearly everything man does or plans to do on Earth has its implication on environment, economy, or society, and for that matter, the continued existence and well-being of human race. Now, in these three pictures, the first picture shows a man who is poor, a boy, poor, jobless. So if a man is given a geographical area, but he lacks a job, that is his economic status, then he's likely to be poor and disenfranchised, and that is his social status. And if he's poor and disenfranchised, he has the incentive to engage in practices that might harm the ecology. How can it harm the ecology? For sustenance, for livelihood, he will move on to the nearby forest because nature will give him things without taking a price. So he starts felling woods. When he starts cutting down wood, his actions can be aggregated with many others of his region, and they may go in for deforestation. Now, deforestation will cause land degradation. Now, all this is just an hypothetical situation. It does not, I'm not saying that it happens every time, but it is a hypothetical situation. So when there is land degradation, the topsoil is eroded, the nutrients are lost. So the crops that are grown over here are devoid of the nutrients that are supplied from the soil. Now, a person who feeds on the crops from this region cannot come up to the level of a person who has a much nutritious diet in terms of new technology. So what happens? His productivity will stagnate. That is, economically, he will continue to remain poor. So what happens? The poor people, they continue to live in poverty. It is therefore a vicious cycle that constitutes or continues in the relationship between environment, economy, and society. An individual's economic status influences his social status, which in turn determines his behavior towards the environment. Now, according to Taylor, in 2016, he said that the three main issues of sustainable development are economic growth, environmental protection, and social equality. And based on this, it can be argued that the concept of sustainable development rests on three conceptual pillars, namely social sustainability, economic sustainability, and environmental sustainability. All the three pillars are vital for sustenance. And if one of them is disbalanced, the entire structure may collapse. Towards the right of your screen, you will see that the main parameters of economic, environmental, and social sustainability are given. Moving on, what is economic sustainability? It implies a system of production that satisfies the present consumption levels without compromising on the future needs. Three main activities that are carried out in an economy, we all know, are production, distribution, and consumption. Now, human life on Earth is supported and maintained by utilizing the limited natural resources that are found on the Earth. Due to population growth, human needs like food, clothing, housing, etc. increase, but the means and resources available in the world cannot be increased to meet the requirements forever. Economic sustainability therefore requires that decisions are made in the most equitable and fiscally sound way possible, while considering the other aspects of sustainability. So it emphasizes on shifting towards renewable resources, protection of an ecosystem so that they are not damaged, avoiding excess pollution, and most importantly, targeting welfare and not growth. We are all interested in GDP. It is not GDP that counts, it is the welfare that's important. It is also important that decisions are taken based on long-term consequences. And this is a very important part of sustainability. We have to take decisions thinking of long-term consequences. Only then we can ensure a sustainable future. Moving on to environmental sustainability. The concept of environmental sustainability is about the natural environment and how it remains productive and resilient to support human life. Environmental sustainability relates to ecosystem integrity and carrying capacity of the natural environment. The Earth systems have limits or boundaries within which equilibrium is to be maintained, which means that natural resources must be harvested no further than they can be regenerated. This is a very important part. When we harvest something, when we take something from nature, we should keep in mind that it has to be regenerated also. You see, it takes millions of years to form coal, but it takes only a few months to extract an entire coal seam. Again, the waste also must be emitted no faster than it can be assimilated by the environment. Now, the current rate of biodiversity loss exceeds the natural rates of extinction. This has been said by UN Sustainable Development Report in 2018. The boundaries of the world's biomes are expected to change with climate change, and species are expected to shift to higher latitudes, higher altitudes with rise in global temperature. Vegetation cover will change. And if species are not able to adjust to geographical distribution, the chances of survival will also be reduced. I now move on to social sustainability. Now, social sustainability encompasses notions of equity, empowerment, accessibility, participation, cultural identity, and institutional stability. So it's much different from the other two sustainable goals. So basically, it connotes a system of social organization that alleviates poverty. But it entails that alleviation of poverty should neither have unwarranted environmental destruction nor economic instability. So at the social level, sustainability should entail fostering development of people and cultures to help achieve a meaningful life, a dignified life, drawing on a proper healthcare system, education system, gender equity, equality, peace, and stability all across the globe. Unless economic and environmental systems where flows are, observable, we can calculate how much has been spent, how much needs to be spent. The dynamics of social sustainability are intangible. They cannot be quantified always. According to Cole in 2016, social sustainability is not about ensuring everyone's needs are met. Rather, it aims at providing enabling conditions for everyone to have capacity to realize the needs. So it is not about satisfying everyone, but it is about providing them or enabling them to satisfy their needs, their wants. It encompasses issues like human rights, gender equity, equality, public participation. It's very important. Public participation is a must for social sustainability, and rule of law, of which all of which promote peace and social stability for sustainable development. I now move on to the geographical perspective. Where does geographer come in this concept of sustainability? Now, geographers seek to understand relationships among places. For example, they study the flows of people, goods, ideas that reinforce differentiation or enhance similarities. It is this differentiation that can also lead to distress in future. I'll be dealing with distress by and by. Now, human actions unavoidably modify or transform nature. In fact, they are often intended specifically to do so. Most of the environmental damage is caused by anthropogenic activities, human activities. If human activities did not hamper the landscape, we would not have had degradation in the Himalayas. We would not have had deforestation in the Amazon basin, desiccation of the Aral Lake, or degradation of landscape in many parts of Asia and Africa. Or even, you see, rampant mining activities that are there in many parts of the world. All this has brought about a change in the total scenario. Human-induced global warming on vulnerable regions, global food supply, and hunger. Now, human activities have brought about environmental changes. We all know there is global warming, increase of temperature, and similarly, there is increase in population growth. There is decrease in agricultural land. And all this leads to a global food crisis or hunger. Again, natural or environmental phenomena like floods, droughts, diseases, any such hazard, be it flood or famine or anything, it involves displacement of people. When there is displacement of people, there is loss of life and livelihood. And such incidents expose the vulnerability of man. Geographical studies is not restricted to mere loss of life or livelihood or forced migration, but the manifestations which are evident in the economy too. there is loss of employment, slumping of the economy, slowing of the economy, and finally, it creates a society of inequality, of exclusion, and lack of social justice. And this is what we call a social distress. I now come to the main point, societal distress, and I have a collage of pictures which I'm sharing with you. As you see the first picture, I move on from the top corner, left-hand side corner. It shows young boys, children standing in a queue waiting for food. Now, you can interpret this picture in a number of ways. Does it signify hunger? It may not. Does it signify a midday meal scheme? It may not. What is important here is people are standing waiting for food. The next picture to the right of that picture shows people wearing masks and movement. It's a very common picture that was out in the internet a few months back, ever since the lockdown, when people walked for miles and miles to reach their homeland. Here I have a small incident to share. You see, when the first lockdown was announced on 24th of March, people did not panic. They continued to stay where they were because there was clear-cut instructions that their jobs would remain, their employers would pay them their salary, they would not have to leave their houses, the government would be transferring some money to their bank accounts, they would be given free ration. So it was not a distress situation at all. Now, after 21 days, what happened? There was no clear-cut instruction from the government to take on to the next lockdown period. When the lockdown got extended, people started to panic. The employers did not know what to do with their employees. So they stopped paying them because there was no production. Mills and factories were shut. Nothing was being earned. So how would they pay them? What happened now? The people who were working as migrant laborers, they began to walk back home. There was no transportation. So they had to walk back home. Now, is such a situation a very uncommon situation? No. Such a situation is common when there are natural hazards, when there is famine, when there is war, when there is flood. People walk. They move away from their place of livelihood. They move to a new place in search of livelihood. They move to a new home. But here it was moving towards an uncertain future. So this is what we call a societal distress. Moving to the third picture on the right-hand top corner, it's about a small child who does not want to see the computer because of online classes. The child does not want to take any more online classes. We are somehow restricting the hormones of the child. We are not allowing the child to mix socially. So that is a distressful situation. Coming down to the next picture, when we have a group of old men sitting, what happens? Even in the most developed countries of the world, we have seen Italy, Spain, they've had the maximum number of deaths in aging population. Aging population is totally helpless. And in such a pandemic, they are in the most distressed state. They are ill, they need to be cared for, yet they have no one with them. Then I have one picture to my extreme left in the bottom corner, over 180 distressed deaths after lockdown. I'd not like to discuss this, but yes, people have given up their lives. People have not been able to take up societal distress. There has been cultural trauma. There has been social trauma. There has been social distress. And the last picture on the extreme bottom, right-hand side bottom, shows how too much of information, too much of social media is causing distress. And I'm sure you'll all agree to what I have just shown. So moving on, we have to overcome distress. So there is strength, there is weakness, there is opportunity, there is threat, and there is a way forward. So in my slide, I've tried to show the strengths, weakness, and I'll be discussing about the threat and the opportunities. So what are our strengths? Whenever we have a distressful situation, the main strength is the solidarity towards nation and the people. You see a group of people come out trying to help the others in distress. That is the solidarity. The nation comes to help. There is PM Cares Fund, which is there created to help the people in distress. There are several NGOs who come out voluntarily to help people to give them food. So that is our strength. We live in a democracy. We live in a society that is, very proactive to take up such distress. Then there's policy level support. Of course, the government and many others, they have certain policies that are pro-people, which help people in distress. This has happened even before, when there was Amphan, or when there was even other cyclones, and every year in Kerala, we have had so many disasters happening. It is the policy level support that keeps the society going. Now, what is the weakness? The weakness is not complying with the policies. This is our behavioral or attitudinal problem. We as individuals do not like to be restricted, do not like to be told what to do and what not to do. An Indian visiting Singapore will not dare to litter the streets of Singapore, but the same Indian will not think twice before spitting on the street. So that is our behavioral problem, our attitudinal problem. If we know of our strength and if we know of our weakness, then what is our threat? The threat is that which we fear most. It is the societal distress, which will keep on occurring. We cannot say that once the pandemic is over, everything will be fine, everything will be hunky-dory. No, distress will come in one or the other form. That is our threat. That will remain with us. But what is our opportunity? The opportunity is our way forward. We have to comply with the social norms, with the environmental norms. Now, we are all aware of Water Act of 1974, but how many of us do really adhere to that act? We don't. So we have to comply with social norms, with environmental norms. Then one thing that we have learned from societal distress is the minimalistic way of life. We have to generate minimum waste. If our needs are restricted, if our wants are limited, and if we are happy with a minimalistic way of life, then we can overcome any sort of distress. And finally, we have to move closer to the society, to the nature, because this pandemic has taught us that unless we move close to the nature, we will not be able to move ahead. So what are the Sustainable Development Goals? Sustainable development relates to the principle of meeting human development goals, while at the same time sustaining the ability of natural systems to provide the natural resources and ecosystem services upon which the economy and society depends. Now, how old is the system? This is a frequently asked question. How old is the system? It's a very old sustainable development goal. This concept of sustainability is very old. I have already spoken about Aristotle. So in 300 BC, this originated. Why is it important now? It is important now because population is increasing, but natural resources are not. Then what is the difference between MDGs and SDGs? MDGs are a sequel to SDGs. MDGs mark the historical global mobilization to achieve and set up important social priorities worldwide. Since all targets of MDGs are not achieved in the 15 years from 2000 to 2015, hence SDGs or Sustainable Development Goals were introduced. And we all know that there are 17 Sustainable Development Goals, and chief among them, you see on your right, the logo is there, and all the pictures, 17 pictures are there. And most important among them are eradication of poverty, hunger, guaranteeing healthy life, universalizing access to basic services like water, sanitation, sustainable energy, generation of development opportunities, inclusive education, decent work, foster innovation, resilient infrastructure, creating communities and cities that are able to produce or consume sustainability. Then reduce gender inequality, care for environmental integrity, promote collaboration between different social agents, and to create an environment of peace, harmony, and ensure consumption and production in a very sustainable manner. I now come to the last portion, that is my conclusion, which says that ultimate aim of sustainable development is to achieve a balance amongst environment, economy, and social sustainability, thus making the three pillars on which sustainable development rests, making them strong. So while not assuming a definitive posture, sustainability of society can be said to depend on the availability of proper healthcare system, of peace and respect for human rights, decent work, gender equality, quality education, rule of the law. Sustainability of economy depends on adoption of appropriate production, distribution, and consumption, while sustainability of environment is driven by proper physical planning and land use, as well as conservation of ecology or biodiversity. Sustainable development cannot be achieved through isolated initiatives, but rather through integrated efforts at various levels, comprising social, environment, and economic aspects. Sustainable development thrives on the commitment of the people. So, in order to translate the concept into action, public participation should be increased. Now, these are my references, but I would like to share with you a story. You are all aware of the story of hare and the tortoise, where the tortoise wins the race in spite of being slow and steady. Slow and steady wins the race, that is the story. But here I am retelling the story. This is the story part 2. Now, the hare was not very happy with the result. It was a hurt on his ego. He felt that the tortoise had done, the tortoise had won the race by just because he had fallen asleep. So what the hare decided to do now? The hare decided to have another race. He invited the tortoise. He said, "Mr. Tortoise, let's have another race." And this time the hare promised himself that I will not fall asleep. And he also had a river in the course of the race, because he felt that once they came to the river, he would jump across the river and he would win the race. So the race began, and the hare was very careful. He did not sleep. He did not rest. He went jumping ahead of the tortoise. The tortoise went on very slowly. Now, when the hare came to the river, he stopped. Why did he stop? Because the river was in spate, which meant that there was so much water in the river that the hare felt frightened to jump across the river. What would the hare do now? He waited. He did not know when the water would go down. We as geographers, we are aware of the situation that when the water in a river increases, it is not that the river water goes down immediately. Finally, the tortoise reached the river, and the tortoise saw the hare standing there. The tortoise then asked the hare, "Why have you not finished your race?" The hare said, "I am unable to cross the river." Then what did the tortoise do? The tortoise told the hare, "Don't worry, Mr. Hare, sit on my back. We will swim across the river and reach the other side." So what is the moral of the story? The moral of the story is that we should not compete. There is no competition. What is the use of competing with each other? In the race to compete with each other, in an urge to move ahead of the other, what do? We are moving towards an unsustainable future. It is the participative approach, the integrated approach that needs to be followed. So that is the theory which should be practiced. And with this, these are my references which I have used. And thank you for your patience. And any questions, I would be happy to take up.
Thank you, ma'am. I congratulate Dr. Devjani Roy for her illustrated and analytical presentation. Ma'am has highlighted her discussion on the sustainability and how it is influenced or influences the society based on geographical perspectives. Her session has focused on the various types of societal distress and seek solution to overcome them. Now it's time for interview session of Dr. Devjani Roy's lecture with the participants of today's webinar. So I request to ma'am to interact with some of our questions from our participants. Then the first question come from our UG student Arnab Manna. He asks that why social inequality is regarded as a constraint of development and the linkage between work participation and dependency ratio.
Okay. Now, there are two things. May I know the name of the person who has asked the question? What is his name?
Actually, his name is Arnab Manna. He's a UG student.
Arnab. Okay, Arnab, there are two parts to the question. The first part is that social inequality. You asked about social inequality. You see, there are two parts: haves and have-nots. If this continues to remain between the haves and have-nots, I have stated examples from my own state. I come from the state of Jharkhand, where there is this difference between haves and have-nots. The most mineral-rich state has the poorest of the people. So social inequality cannot foster sustainability. That is one part of it. Second part, you asked about work participation and dependency ratio. Now, for that, dependency ratio means those people who do not earn their own livelihood or living, who are not economically productive, they are dependent on those people who are earning from them. Now, in societies like developing countries like India, which has a wide-based pyramid, that is the age group 0 to 14 years, that is huge, and we also have an aging population. There, the dependency ratio obviously increases. Work participation becomes less. But we in India have a very different type of a situation. We also have a big workforce which is not employed, which is looking for employment, because we have had a very big number of children previously. So the dilemma continues, and this can go in for further discussions. So I think you are satisfied or not to a certain extent. Your UGC.
Yeah, I think that the student has got his answer. Ma'am, the second question come from SK Das. He asked that what is the goal for environmental sustainability by the year 2020?
Now, poverty alleviation is one of the goals. There are plenty of goals. See, 17, when we talk of sustainable development goals, many things like equity, gender equity, equality, and everything, they all come in together. Poverty alleviation, decent livelihood, healthcare infrastructure, then education, dignity of labor, everything comes together. So I cannot say that, I cannot pinpoint that this is by 2020. Everything, when we started with the SDGs, we had a number of goals, 17 goals, and we have achieved some. We are on the process of achieving some more.
Okay, ma'am. The next question came from Manush Mondal. He asked that in the third world countries where the human population is increasing in alarming rate, is there societal development and sustainability run in parallel way?
Societal development. You see, I would like to quote Amartya Sen over here, the Nobel laureate, who first pointed out that we are more interested in GDP. We are interested in numbers. We are interested in what our economic growth is. We are not interested on our social growth. Like, we should focus more on healthcare. We should focus more on education. And today, when we face the pandemic, we know how vulnerable we are. We have not been able to develop even after 74 years of independence, we have not been able to develop a proper healthcare system. The population does not have access to healthcare. Then there is no education as such. We do most of our there is a high rate of dropout among school children. So all these things are there. We have to look into the the whole thing in a totalitarian way. We cannot just have a myopic view. We should have a long term development goals in our view. Only then we can move ahead towards a sustainable future.
Okay, ma'am. The next question came from Ashish Goj. He asked that why economic disparity and social inequality regarded as a constraint of development.
I think Mr. Ashish has himself answered the question.
Yeah.
It is a constraint. So why
Yeah.
it is regarded, everyone knows the answer. If there is inequality, you cannot have development. There is two things. See, equality and equity. Equality means you are treating everyone equal. So I allow everyone to come to school, but equity is with I'm seeing whether everyone is having access to that education that I'm giving. For example, in this period of pandemic, we have started online classes. All of us have started online classes. How many of our students, this is an equal, I'm talking about equality. I want all my 100 students to benefit from my online classes. So that is my perception of equality. What is my perception of equity? I have to make sure that my student has the network connection to access my lecture. I don't know whether the person has that or not. So equality and equity are two different concepts. They should go hand in hand. Only then we can move towards development.
Okay. I would like to conclude this interactive session by a last question due to limitation of time. The last question comes from our UG student, Pushpita Manna. How do public participation increased for developing social sustainability in recent times?
Okay. See, in recent times, we have had public-private partnership projects coming up. It is felt that the government alone cannot do everything. Similarly, a private person cannot do everything. It's a big country, the biggest democracy in the world. If we have to look for our sustainable future, we should join together. There should be an integration. There should be a partnership. As I told you the story of a hare and tortoise, I ended my lecture with this hare and tortoise story. The hare and tortoise story in itself shows that there should be public-private partnership. If the tortoise would not have agreed to take the hare on his back and swim across the river, what would have happened? The tortoise would have won the race once again. So in the race between public and private, there cannot be a race. There has to be an integrated movement. They should move in the same direction because the goal is same. So if we move in the same direction, we are bound to be successful.
Thank you, ma'am. It's a wonderful session. We have enjoyed a lot. Nice, your nice, informative and illustrated presentation. I think the participants present with us also enjoyed your presentation very much. Thank you again, ma'am, for your nice, illustrated and thoughtful presentation. Thank you,
Thank you, Bedhash. Just a moment, Bedhash. Yeah. I have shared my email ID in this presentation. Anyone who wants to connect with me can do so. I am not an authority on sustainability, but this happens to be my area of interest, and I should be very happy to answer the queries, especially of students. If students are interested in knowing something, I would be most happy to share my knowledge with them. Thank you so much.
Thank you, ma'am. Thank you.
Thank you so much. Thank you.
Over to Sumona. Sumona.
Thank you, madam. It is time for valedictory session. Our convener sir will be delivered somewhat.
Then we come to our valedictory session. Today, we have enjoyed the wonderful technical session enlightened by two of our key speakers, Dr. Torun Kumar Mondol and Dr. Devjani Roy. The topic presented by Dr. Mondol, Agriculture in Indian Sundarban Delta, Challenges and Opportunities, is very much relevant for our rural Bengal society in present day scenario. The topic presented by Dr. Roy has equivalent relevance, which has enriched us on societal distress and sustainability based on geographical analysis. Both the presentation have enriched us with analysis based on geographical presentation and examples, which have helped to accommodate with the present ground level scenario, considering some specific region and some specific case study. We are very much thankful to Dr. Torun Kumar Mondol and Dr. Devjani Roy for their nice conceptual, illustrated and analytical presentation in today's theme of agriculture, society and sustainability, a geographical outline. Each presentation is very much fruitful for us as our key speakers interact with some of our questions and queries offered by the participants, and they have given each response in very simple and informative way. I, on behalf of Department of Geography and our organizing committee of Shyampur Siddheswari Mahavidyalaya, convey both of our honorable speakers warm wishings and thanks. Moreover, it is very graceful to us to have participants from different parts of our West Bengal. They have enjoyed a lot, and also as well as there are so many participants who have enjoyed our webinar from Manipur University, Goa University, and various colleges and universities from Jammu and Kashmir, Jharkhand, Maharashtra, Tamil Nadu, Karnataka, and Madhya Pradesh. Now, I request my colleague Sumana to convey vote of thanks for today's one-day national webinar. Sumana, over to you.
Good evening, everybody. Now we have reached at the end point of today's webinar. It was the wonderful session presented by two of our honorable speakers. We are thankful to each and every present here. We are thankful to our honorable president of the governing body, Sri Kalipada Mondol. We are also thankful to the honorable member of governing body, Sri Nodebashi Jana. We would like to give a token thanks to our principal, Dr. Shyantu Kumar Bose, who has encouraged us to arrange such a program during this time. We are expressing our thanks to our coordinator of IQAC, Sri Rajashri Mukherjee, who has constantly cooperated us to arrange this program in such a systematic and smooth way. We are also thankful to Sri Midul Ghosh, Assistant Professor of Computer Science, for his constant technological support. We are thankful to the teaching faculty of various departments and non-teaching staff of our college who has given us to cooperation in various ways. We got more than 1,000 registered participants. We are thankful to each them, the students, research scholar, school teacher, college, university faculties, librarians belong to different parts of our state, country and abroad. Above all, I am congratulating and giving our heartful thanks to our respected key speaker, Dr. Torun Kumar Mondol and Dr. Devjani Roy, who spent their valuable time with us. Thank you all for making this program huge success.
Thank you, Sumana. We have reached at the last point of our today's webinar. Then one announcement for all our participants of this webinar. Please kindly remember that the feedback form link will be sent to you by our official WhatsApp and Telegram group just after the end of this session. So the participants who have not yet joined, I request them all to join our Telegram group. The link has been given in our official YouTube live and Facebook page also. The feedback link will remain active Please remember, the feedback link will remain active till tomorrow, 17th August, 11:30 p.m. night. The feedback link will remain active till tomorrow, 17th August, 11:30 p.m. Kindly, carefully fill your feedback form because based on your given data, the e-certificate will be generated. Please remember, based on successful submission of feedback form, the e-certificate will be generated within few days, and using a web link, the participants can download it by its own. And necessary information related to the e-certificate generation, the web link will only given to our official WhatsApp and Telegram group, not by any email, not by any individual email. Only it will be given by our official WhatsApp and Telegram group. Then thank you everyone for being with us. Now we are going to close today's session, and we wish you all stay conscious, stay healthy, stay safe. Thank you again. Thank you very much.